There we go. Okay. Apparently I can't tap buttons on the screen and talk at the same time. Okay, so here we go. We're going to hit your bell ringer. We're going to look at one more Google slide as far as your World War II notes go. Sorry. We'll start it today. We'll probably wrap up on the last couple of things tomorrow. And then tomorrow, I've got some video clips to show. I'm not going to take a whole lot of time tomorrow because tomorrow your unit test opens. Even though you have tomorrow through Friday in which to do it, I mean, I would strongly encourage you not to wait until Friday to do it, but that's totally up to you. Please keep in mind, and this is for everybody, this is virtual, in person, since we are officially on Monday moving to Plan A as a school, and any and everybody that wants to come full, when I say full time, you mean Monday through Thursday, okay? So I've got plenty of room in my classroom. That's never been a problem. I'm very sorry to say. It's a very sad reality for me that I've always had plenty of room. So if you want to come tomorrow to take the test in person, if you want to be here for the review in person, and it'd be more than just the happy three of us that are here today. Just keep that in mind. And then also, this is, again, for everybody. Don't care if you're A, B, whatever, even online, starting Monday. If you want to be here full time, Monday through Thursday, please come. Please come. All right, let's do this. Your bell ringer question for today says, it's a review from yesterday. How did the war in Europe end? It's a two-part question. How did the war in Europe end? We end up, the Allies, when I say we, I mean the Allies, the Soviets, the US, and British forces all push into Germany. After the Battle of the Bulge is the last offensive push for the Germans. We push them in to the middle of Europe. We have them surrounded. They officially surrender May 7th, 1945, which leads into question 2. May 7th, 1945 is known as VE Day. What does VE Day stand for? Victory in Europe Day. Yeah, so the war in Europe ends after the last major, I mean, not that we don't have anything that happens after the Battle of the Bulge, but it is the last major land battle that will take place as we work to surround Germany and Italy as the two Axis powers in Europe. May 7th, 1945 officially ends the war in Europe. And again, you have to make sure you know that, just the war in Europe, because we haven't talked about how things are going in the Pacific. And it is known as VE Day, or Victory in Europe Day. And that is going to be a test question. Please make sure that you know that for tomorrow or Friday, whichever day you choose to take it. All right, I'm going to hit you with a couple of reminders of what's coming up. So hopefully you are doing a good job as far as paying attention to due dates. Today, your IDs are due for Chapter 21, World War II continues. Again, it is just a set of IDs. Hopefully, you've paced yourself. You've been working on them throughout the week, but they are officially due today. So if you're not done, make sure you take care of that. We will finish the packet tomorrow, but you have until Friday in which to turn the packet in, even though I would highly encourage you to make sure you get it done and turned in tomorrow. Your World War II project. It is in 3 pieces. We talked about the first piece before we let out for spring break. The first piece was your appetizer. You were supposed to choose either a propaganda poster, a postcard, or a timeline to do. If you haven't done that already, obviously you need to be working your way through the pieces. The idea was for you to have the appetizer done before spring break and then be working on the main course, which is your Google slide presentation this week. And then your last and final component being your dessert, if you will, which is just a reflection. Now, I meant to bring that up to tell you exactly what you need to include in your reflection. Everything needs to be turned in and submitted on Monday, April 12th. But let me bring up really quick what all is included in that reflection, just to make sure that I don't I'm not missing something. Hold on. Nope, wrong thing. There it is. Okay. All right. So there's a couple of key questions that I want you to answer when you're doing your reflection. It says that you should answer a couple of questions. What did you learn that you didn't previously know? How might the war have been avoided? I know several things that we talked about is the Treaty of Versailles that ends World War I and how all that kind of led to World War II. So how might it have been avoided? What did you learn? What did you already know? What did you think was interesting? And it should be a minimum of a page reflection, a minimum of a page, a Google Doc, 12 font, Times New Roman, double spaced. It shouldn't take much once you're putting in all that information. What did you learn? What did you know? How could it have been avoided? Throw in some fun facts in there for me, whatever. But give me a minimum of a page on that reflection. So that is something else to use your time to work on between now and the end of the week. And again, whatever you don't finish, make sure that everything is done by next Monday, the 12th. And then last but not least, not that you didn't have enough going on, last but not least, make sure that you don't forget about your STEAM paper. Here again, I tried to strongly encourage you to start working on this before we let out for break. Some of you are expert procrastinators. So if you have not, make sure that you know that I need that paper turned in by Friday, and then you've got a lot of time for the next pieces. The next pieces being the display board on the 20th and the 3D visual on the 26th, maybe, something like that. So you've got plenty of time, and there are multiple options for your display. It doesn't have to be a display board. If you want it to be, then you are free to grab one. It's in the back of the room. I got a whole box. Other options is doing a Google slide or doing a TED Talk video. So those are other options as far as your part 2 goes. Now, last and final thing, somebody asked me in third block yesterday, and I keep forgetting to put it in Google Classroom. There will be one last and final opportunity for extra credit for anybody that wants it. If you already have extra credit, you've been saving it up, don't forget that you have it. If you have a load test or quiz grade, a project grade, whatever, don't forget that you can use that extra credit. Gage, I think you and Aiden both still have extra credit points from our World War I game show. So don't forget, y'all have got, I think Lilius, you might have some points. I don't remember. I've got a list somewhere of who's got points from that Jeopardy game. So if you've done any of the extra credit options, if you've got points from us playing that review game, don't forget that you have that extra credit, and you choose when you want to use it. If you're saving it up for third 6 weeks, that's fine. But if there is anything that you want to use it on for second 6 weeks, I need to know by Friday. Yeah. I'm just reminding you that it's there. All right. Any questions? Questions, comments, concerns before we jump into notes? If not, throw it in the chat if you're online, or hit me at the end. All right.
When did you say that essay was due? Which Friday?
Now, are you talking about the STEAM project paper, or are you talking about?
Yes.
Friday. This Friday.
Okay.
Yes.
I wrote mine, and it was 2 pages, and I didn't double space it, and now that double space it's like 4. So, it said 2 to 3. Is that a problem?
Why would I penalize you if you went over? I mean, that's mostly for people that are struggling to get to the 2, you know? So I think you're all right. I'm just saying, but I think you're good. Okay. I'm just messing with you. You're fine. All right. Let's make some magic happen. We're going to get into these notes. I'm going to intro us into how things are going in the Pacific. And then we will probably, I don't know, we'll see how long it takes me. But I do want to make sure that a majority of tomorrow is doing a good review for you guys and wrapping up any loose ends. So let's talk about it. Yesterday, we talked about how the war ended in Europe. So now we're going to talk about how the war is happening in the Pacific. All right, so everything kind of gets rolling out. You even have to back up a little bit before this. You have to back up until the 1930s when we talk about us establishing an embargo against Japan because they had invaded China, and we do not acknowledge any country and we don't do business with any country that takes land by force. So Pearl Harbor happens December 7th, 1941. The Japanese are going to hit us in the early morning hours of a Sunday. After that, we are going to retaliate. We do have a mission, and I apologize that we don't really take that much time to even talk about it. And if we have time, I'm going to show you the video clip of the Doolittle raid. It's kind of our revenge mission to get back at them for what happened at Pearl Harbor. But anyway, this is mostly a battle at sea. We are going to do what we call island hopping, to where we are following the Japanese. The Japanese have just kind of run rampant, and they have taken control of all these islands that are out there in the Pacific. Again, remind you that Japan is an island nation, which means they are limited on their natural resources and land. So that is one of their biggest reasons as to why they go after China and these surrounding islands. Again, victories out in the Pacific. Japan is kind of doing their thing, running wild for about 6 months. And you know how we talked about Eisenhower being the general that's going to be running, especially Operation Overlord over in Europe. You got to remember Douglas MacArthur, who we've actually talked about before. Douglas MacArthur is going to be the general in charge of what's going on in the Pacific. He does have to retreat from the Philippines. The Army's going to surrender the Philippines April of 42. And then, and I really wish we had a lot of time to get in this and talk to you about this, but this is a picture of some POWs that were taken. Again, somebody remind me, what does that mean? What does that stand for? Prisoners of war, yes. And if you didn't know this already, it is just astounding the torture that was put on American, not just American POWs, but all POWs that were captured by the Japanese. A lot of it is mental torture, not just physical. I mean, there is a lot of physical torture that was put in place, you know, making them get up in, you know, early hours, do physical exercise after they have completely deprived them of, you know, maybe a sip of water and a piece of bread that they're supposed to be functioning off of. You know, not allowing them, they can't talk, they can't interact, they're all separated, they're denied any type of communication with family and friends and loved ones to even let them know that they're alive. I mean, it is horrendous. And again, that's why I say you need to see the movie. Even if you're not going to read the book, at least see the movie Unbroken. It's so good. The famous, and I know I say this right, it's not Baton Death March? Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. I feel like I always say it wrong. Okay, all right. I feel like I always say it wrong every time I talk about it. But the hundreds of thousands of soldiers that died from, again, POW camps, being abused by the Japanese after being captured. Again, we got to remember Douglas MacArthur. He pledges to return. He says, I shall return, take back the Philippines. And that's exactly what we're getting ready to talk about, is how we end up turning things around in favor of the Allies winning in the Pacific. The bombing of Tokyo, April of 42, the Doolittle raid, again, we're trying the idea of total war, taking out all their resources, their ability to continue to wage war. You've got the Battle of the Coral Sea. We've got our battleships, our carriers. It is pretty impressive how we're able to go after the Japanese, how strong our Navy is. The Battle of Midway takes place June of 1942, which is a turning point for the war in the Pacific. You probably see a question about that on your test tomorrow as well. How we talked about the turning point for the war in Europe, and now this is the turning point for the war in the Pacific, the Battle of Midway. You've got Admiral Chester Nimitz inflicting major damage on the Japanese fleets. The Japanese have a hard time recovering once they realize that we are pushing out in force our carriers, our battleships. We only lose 4 carriers and 1 battleship, the USS Yorktown. It's really exciting to say that the USS North Carolina got to see action during World War II. This is a great picture of one of our aircraft carriers, getting to see an airplane take off. That's pretty awesome. And again, if we have time, we'll show you a video clip. I always think that visuals are way better than just me talking about it. All right, this is advertisement. This is propaganda that we talked about already. Going after the Japanese, seeing our battleships in action. I mean, just look at that. Such an impressive sight. Seeing our battleships coming. Again, the guns that we have on our battleships, so impressive. All right, so the biggest thing that we talk about in the Pacific is all the island hopping that we do, that we are literally chasing and tracking down the Japanese. Let's see. A couple more that we'll talk about. The Guadalcanal in 1942, 6-month battle that happens on land between August and February of 43. We go and take the Philippines back in 1944. MacArthur returns to retake the Philippines. And it actually is not much longer before we will give the Philippines their independence to be their own country. I think that happens in 49. I want to say it's 49. Oh, let me ask you this good review question while we've got just a second. Speaking of 45, April of 45, Roosevelt passes away. So yesterday we learned who is it that is going to be president to finish the war in both Europe and the Pacific. Yes, Harry Truman will be the one that has to make a very huge decision. We've been working on a secret project known as the Manhattan Project, developing what? Yes, the atomic bomb, and playing around with the idea of whether or not to use nuclear missiles. And that is all going to be something that Truman, God bless him, a big decision that he has to consider. All right, one of the more famous images, and of course, an iconic monument that is going to be established, is talking about the Battle of Iwo in 1945. 6,000 Marines. Just a lot happens in 45. Roosevelt also, April of 45. The Japanese are using every man that they have to defend themselves with. We talked about kamikaze attacks the other day, just making sure that you remember that that's talking about suicide pilots. And yes, Japanese were volunteering to be kamikaze pilots. Again, a lot of it has to do with you understanding their cultural beliefs. The Japanese are very much all about honor and glory, bringing honor and glory to their family and to their country. And one way to do that would be through the ultimate sacrifice and using themselves and their plane as the last resource of a weapon. Okinawa happens in 45 as well. The death tolls keep going up. And so because of that, that's where the question comes. The U.S. has to sit down and consider. Since we know the Japanese are not going to give up, they're not going to quit, they will fight quite literally to the very last person, if that's what it was to come down to, knowing that our death tolls are going to keep going up. And if we launched a land invasion of Japan, that the cost of lives would just be astronomical. I mean, the death tolls would be horrendous. That's where the idea comes into play of using a nuclear weapon to end things versus a full-on land invasion. So we fear that massive casualties will be incurred if we do launch a land invasion. And again, it is going to fall to Truman and his administration to make this very difficult decision. There's Truman being sworn in. We talked about that yesterday. So here it is. This is probably where I'm going to end today, and then I'll wrap up on a few things tomorrow. The Manhattan Project, somewhere around 600,000 people that are working on the project. Super top secret. It is mostly American and British scientists. Y'all note who's not invited to this. We don't want any Russian scientists. And why? You might want to guess as to why we would not want Russians to have this knowledge and capability. For what reasons? That they are communist. We are very anti-communist. So again, we kind of almost have a frenemy situation with them. They are an ally of ours during the war, but it's kind of the idea of you keep your friends close, but you keep your enemies closer. So they are a communist. We are definitely anti-communist. We do not want communists having this type of capability in their hands, which just, this is foreshadowing of what is to come, because next week we'll get into the Cold War, which is all about the fear of a World War III and a nuclear war coming. So anyway, this is foreshadowing. So Russians are not invited to find out what's going on with this new secret weapon. Dr. Robert Oppenheimer is going to be heading and leading the project. We're going to be testing very small, tiny version in Los Alamos, New Mexico, out in the desert, out in the middle of nowhere, not anywhere, out in the middle of nowhere. We are going to test and let a little tiny one go off just so we can see kind of what we might expect as the aftermath. A lot of scientists are urging the U.S. government. This is like they say, unleashing a genie out of a bottle. You don't really know what exactly to expect. You know, we've never done this before, especially on a large scale. So we don't really know what the side effects, the long-term effects. We don't know the answers to a lot of these questions. Is it wise to use a new piece of technology when you don't have all the answers? So they're having to weigh the pros and the cons. Do we use an ultimate weapon like this to speed up the end of the war? Is it worth us saving American lives? But we also know, on the other hand, there's going to be a large cost of civilian lives on the Japanese end of it. Truman does make the decision to use the weapon against Japan. We want to force Japan to surrender without any kind of land invasion. And we're not completely heartless. We do have flyers that are dropped all across the mainland of Japan, warning citizens of what is coming, strongly encouraging them to encourage their emperor to surrender. And if they don't, that I forget how they word it. The ultimate, did I write it down? I meant to write it down somewhere. The ultimate weapon of destruction is going to be used. I think somewhere around the effects of that wording. And nothing. We spent weeks sending out that information. We got no response from Japan, no response from the emperor, no response from General Tojo. And so we took that as a sign to proceed. And somebody tell me before we even get there, how many times do we drop it? We drop it twice. All right, so let's see, how much do I even have left? Let's just save those last couple of things for tomorrow. I won't spend long going over it. Geez. If you'll give me a second, I'll grab my book, because that's what I was looking at this morning to look at those numbers. And a lot of people question, what reasons did we have for choosing those two particular cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Because we don't go after the capital. And we picked those two cities in particular because those are where a lot of their major factories are located. And again, that comes down to the idea of total war, that you're trying to take away any resources that they might still have to continue to fight. But again, it is going to be a large cost as far as civilian lives go. So, but don't let me forget, because I do want to look to see what that number is myself. I don't have it memorized, but I'll look in just a second. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hit the pause button with your notes. We'll finish up on those last couple of pieces tomorrow before we start to review. So that'll kind of help. It'll be fresh on your brain. All right, grab your packet, pull it up, however you are doing your packet. We've got a couple of pages to look at today as well. We're going to go to guided reading 21-5, fill in the blank, so you can just kind of follow along as we go through that. And then we're going to finish the timeline that we started yesterday and start the reteaching activity. We're not going to finish it today. We'll probably finish it tomorrow. All right, 21-5, guided reading, fill in the blank, follow with me. Here we go. All right, so section 1 says, the Third Reich collapses. A says, as the Americans pushed east towards Germany, Hitler began a last offensive that became known as Battle of the Bulge. It's a lot to squeeze in, I know. Battle of the Bulge. And while you write that down, I'm going to grab my book really quick. Oh, come on. Got it. Okay, I'll look it up just a second because I also had some fun facts I was going to share that were interesting. Okay, sorry. All right, B, by the end of February 1945, American troops had fought their way to the Rhine River, and that is R-H-I-N-E, Rhine River, which was Germany's last major line of defense in the West. C, that date, we talked about it several times. You're going to see it as a test question on May 7th, 1945. So for C, it's the date. May 7th, 1945, Germany surrendered, and the next day was pronounced VE Day, or Victory in Europe Day. All right, section 2, Japan is defeated. A, American military planners decided to invade Iwo. I'm going to spell it for you. I-W-O, second word, J-I-M-A, Iwo. So that American B-29 bombers, that's your second blank. Your second blank for A is B-29 bombers. B-29 bombers could land and refuel before bombing Japan. All right, B, the firebombing of Tokyo. So we don't completely leave Tokyo alone. B is Tokyo. The firebombing of Tokyo kills over 80,000 people and destroys more than 250,000 buildings in the city. C, to aid a possible invasion of Japan, the U.S. also captures the island of Okinawa. Okinawa, O-K-I-N-A-W-A, Okinawa. All right, D, you should know the answer, just talked about it. The American program to build an atomic bomb was codenamed what? Manhattan Project. Yes, Manhattan Project for D. All right, E, in 1942, Leo, and I'm not going to say his last name right, Szilard and Enrico Fermenti built the world's first nuclear reactor for E, nuclear reactor. And it was built at the University of Chicago, nuclear reactor. F, the Allies threatened Japan with nuclear war. That's your answer, nuclear war, if the nation did not surrender unconditionally. But the Japanese did not reply. G, faced with the massive destruction of the nuclear attacks and the shock of the Soviets are going to join us. Soviets joining the Allies, the Japanese emperor ordered his government to surrender on August 15th, 1945, which we didn't talk about the official name for that day. It's going to be VJ Day, and it's Victory Over Japan Day. And section 3, building a new world. A says President Roosevelt believed that a new international political organization could prevent another world war, and he was instrumental in creating what? This has taken the place of the League of Nations. What do we have today? The United Nations. Yes. The UN or the United Nations. A, at the Nuremberg trials, the international military, that's supposed to be a T or not? I can't see it. I can't make out the letters. Okay, I'm sorry. We're just going to roll on. Tried German leaders suspected of war crimes. War crimes. Most of them are going to be tried with crimes against humanity. United Nations or the UN. So war crimes for B. And C, the Allies did not put the Emperor of Japan on trial in order to avoid an uprising. We were concerned that that would cause an uprising, and we were just ready to be done. Even though General Tojo, who was made the prime minister, he will be tried and executed for war crimes. Okay, all right, we got a couple more things to take care of. Go back to the first page. That should be your timeline page. We did not finish the timeline yesterday. We did all except for that last little paragraph. We still have 8 through 12 on your timeline page to finish. So let's do that really quick. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, U.S. Marines landed on the island of Iwo Jima. So number 8, Iwo Jima. Again, just checking for the spelling. It is I-W, is that O? Is that what it's supposed to be? I-W. Make sure I'm checking my spelling. I-W-O-J-I-M-A. Iwo Jima. All right, moving on. And in April of 1945, that's number 9. And in April of 1945, American troops invaded Okinawa. 3 months later, the U.S. dropped atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of, so 10 and 11 are the Japanese cities. 10 and 11, doesn't matter what order, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Well, it does matter the order. Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And on August 15th, 1945, the Japanese surrendered and World War II was over. All right, did anybody miss any on those on 21-5 or on the timeline? Let me go too fast.
Yeah, Miss Walker, what was number 9?
Number 9, it's just a date. It's
Okay.
April 1945.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, number 9, April.
What was 8?
Oh, 8 is Iwo Jima, I-W-O-J-I-M-A.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, good deal. All right. Anybody else on either the timeline or 21-5? Okay. All right. We're going to start. The only page that you should have left, unless you've missed a day and you need to go back and watch a video, is that, what is it called? The reteaching activity. It's just a matching activity. So we're going to start it today, and then I'm going to give these guys in person some time to work on project stuff. So we're going to start it. Let me grab my copy because I've got a copy. I think I might put it back in the folder. Where's my copy? I thought I put it back. Maybe. I'm the world's worst at moving stuff and losing it. I literally saw it like yesterday. All right, hold on. Not ready to get up yet. Do it without, but it'll take me longer. Okay, hold on. As usual, I've set it down and lost it somewhere. All right. Get ready to do it. Check one last place. Okay. Oh, well, I lost it. It's okay. It'll just take me longer as I have to go through everything. All right, so let's do just a couple of these to get started, and whatever we don't finish today, we'll do tomorrow. So I'm going to bounce around just a little bit to try and speed this up just a tad. All right, number one, thousands of Allied prisoners of war died on a march to a Japanese prison camp. Talked about that today. What letter is it? C. Yes, so number one is C. All right, let's see. Let's go to what do I want to do? Let's skip down. Okay, this is kind of a fun fact too. Let's skip down to number 9. Number 9, Fat Man landed here, convincing the Japanese emperor to order Japan to surrender. So they named and drew on the 2 atomic bombs that were dropped. And that Fat Man was a nickname given for one of the atomic bombs. So what was the location of the second one that was dropped? Nagasaki. So number 9 is L. Number 9 is L. All right, let's skip to, go up to number 4. Scientists with Manhattan Project developed the atomic bomb in this secret location. Where did I say that they tested a small, tiny version? Los Alamos, New Mexico. So that's D for number 4. Let's skip down to, Skip down to 7. Despite suffering high casualties during the beach invasion, the Allies successfully carried out Operation Overlord on D-Day. Where's this taking place? I know it's really blurry. It's kind of hard to see some of them, but your answer is I, Normandy. Normandy for number 7. About lost my number. All right, how many have we done? Okay. Let's see. Let's do just a couple more and we'll finish tomorrow. Let's do. Let's skip down to 11. Seeking to destroy the Soviet economy, Hitler attempted to capture this key city. B for number 11, Stalingrad. B for 11. What do I want to do next? How about... No, let's just stop there. Time-wise, I need to give these guys time. We'll finish tomorrow. So that's all that you should have left in your packet unless you've missed a day and need to go back and watch a video, okay? All right, so we will finish that last page and then you can turn in your packets hopefully tomorrow. Don't forget, if you have not done so already, make sure that you have finished defining your terms. Terms are due today. And then make sure you use time to work on your World War II project. Let me check the chat to make sure that I haven't missed anything. Oh, okay. All right, so what do you guys have for me? Questions, comments, or concerns before I let you go?
Yeah, Miss Walker, I was wondering for that extra credit, wait, so can we put it on anything from term 2, you said?
Yes.
Okay. Can I put mine on the chapter 14 and 15 imperialism and progressives unit test?
All right, let me make myself a note. Chapter 14 and 15. Okie dokie, I got it.
So yeah, I guess just everything I have so far for extra credit, just put it on that one.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Can do. All right, yeah, I'll make sure I put it on there between now and Friday. Because I'm working on grades all week. So, all right,
All right, yeah.
credit. I got it. Good. Anybody else need me before I let you go? All right, if you're good, I'm gonna let you guys go and I'll see you tomorrow, okay? If you need me, stay on. If not, have a good one.